Hello again and welcome. And thank you for joining. I'm John Asan, Pre-Sales Manager at Versasec. Today we have a good webinar, I think. I'll walk you through some very good features we delivered in VSEC CMS and spanning versions 7.0 to 7.2. This was last year. There's a lot on those releases. So we've curated this to show the highlights. Those are the updates that we think will be the most valuable for you and your customers. We're planned to go about 45 minutes here with a Q&A session at the end. Just to note, your microphones are all muted. And so please drop your questions in the Q&A chat as we go. We're going to try to answer at the end. We're going to try to answer as many as we can. If we don't get to your questions, we apologize in advance. We will follow up by email to your questions. So please jot those down as we go along. All right, so yeah, let's start. All right, so before we jump into the product highlights, I want to take a minute to discuss a little bit on a few key milestones and achievements that we made over the past few years. Now, this is mainly focusing on the work we've done around FIDO2 and passkey management. And as FIDO technology evolves and matured more, we've really put a lot of focus and effort together with our partners in giving you the tools to drive your strategy and adoption to manage these hardware-backed passkeys. Now, this slide is not everything we've done, but it is just a few of the milestones and achievements that stand out for us and we're proud of. And if you look across that roadmap, you could see essentially a common theme. You start from basically device handling. So from the device handling, right, steadily maturing day-to-day device handling to onboarding to identity integration, again, stronger controls, and finally scalability. So if we start at the start of that roadmap, management of FIDO2 security devices over NFC, which made daily handling of the devices a bit more easier and convenient for users. We also added biometric enrollment for those devices that have a fingerprint sensor. You're able to enroll the fingerprint included as a part of the VSEC CMS issuance flow. Then we brought you Entra ID for FIDO2 management. That's our collaboration with Microsoft for that. Again, Entra ID for FIDO passkey management. We also brought here is the use of Entra ID as a user directory in CMS when you want to assign the users from the Entra ID tenants to the device. Of course, as we went along, we understood that now that we're managing multiple IDPs, and we will add more, of course, it became apparent that we needed to add the ability to manage multiple passkeys because you can say in real environments, often you have involved more than one identity provider or configuration. Working closely with Thales, we delivered the enterprise-grade passkey capabilities that went beyond the FIDO2 standard. So for the organizations I want to roll out those extended feature credentials where they need the stronger governance and security controls. And at the same time, working closely with all our partners, we expanded across a wide range of credentials from so customers have more choice to meet their strategy and compliance needs. That also covered a lot of the credentials that included PIV, not just FIDO. And then on scalability, we extended I'll start with the batch issuance there, batch issuance FIDO2 smart cards. We extended batch issuance to FIDO2 smart cards, really building on the batch model functionality we have in V6 CMS already that might be known to you from the PKI functionality that we had already. And more recently, integration with YubiKey pre-registration, adding not just, of course, scalability and automation, not only in the software workflows, but also for distribution. So that's our key milestones and achievements in kind of the past few years. Okay, so one of the realities in credential programs is the credential landscape never sits still, right? You have a lot of different teams standardized in different products. Requirements vary a lot. NFC here, FIPS there, different form factors, and sometimes different compliance needs. So a big part of what we do is we keep what we do in V6 CMS is expanding the choice. Customers can adopt the credentials that fit their strategy without having to change the way they manage them. So across these releases, we expanded support across the several vendors, which you're familiar with here. Of course, Thales, Swissbit, HID. We also added a new credential from a new partner, Authentian. So you have got the more options that still plug into this same CMS life cycle as you already know and use. You have some, of course, modern interfaces here like the NFC and, of course, the compliant-driven options like FIPS. Of course, those requirements keep showing up more and more on newer projects. And specifically on the Thales side, some of these credentials are supported in both standard and enterprise FIDO modes. So you can align that with the credential capability to what the customer is trying to achieve. Okay. All right. So as we spoke a little bit about scale, we have an integration with YubiKey as a service, because a lot of times in real rollouts, the challenge part is not just the key itself, it's also what's around that. You have the ordering, preparing it in the right way. Of course, on the management side and the workflow side that we do, that tying it to the right user identity platform and all that, but also then in the logistics and getting it safely into the user's hand. So what we did here is connect V6 CMS with Yubico as a service so that the whole flow becomes guided and trackable. All right. So on the left, you'll see the V6 CMS admin. That person would place the order, all right, and doesn't have to be a deep technical role person. It's pretty straightforward. Place the order. Once places the order, well, during the order, I should say, they have a preset for an order profile. So what type of key, which policy, which identity platform it should be ready for. They select the user and they hit submit. Okay. From there, the CMS takes over, right? The order is sent out. The key is based on the profile, and it's shipped directly to the user, whether they're in the same office or somewhere else out in the world. Okay. And because the whole process is driven by the CMS, let's say, you can track the progress end to end. Okay. Once delivery is confirmed, the CMS would complete that last step where the user gets the PIN through the configured method, and the passkey is then, of course, activated in the target identity platform, whichever one is used there. So the experience from the user is simple. I have the key, I got my PIN, I go ahead and I authenticate against my IDP. And that's it. So virtually no manual work, pretty much consistent setup every time. You have visibility through the whole process, and the rollout model is scales very cleanly. All right, shifting a little bit to Microsoft Sentinel integration. The idea here is we bring Versasec CMS audit events into Sentinel. So your security ops can monitor credential activity in the SIEM that they're used to, in this case, Microsoft Sentinel. The connector will use or uses the Sentinel's codeless connector framework. So there's no real like custom code or no extra services to run. It pulls audit logs from Versasec CMS server into the dedicated table and your Azure analytics. And there are different events that show up here. So credential lifecycle, your issuance and revocations, your operator or admin activity, right? Successful and failed events, the key admin changes, if they're using on the self-service side, let's say a PIN on block certificate renewals, the system's integrity, so any configuration changes that are made, the integration status, backup restore activity, and etc. So the value, of course, you get better detection, faster investigation. If you run into things, you can correlate the CMS events with the signals in, let's say, the Microsoft Entra ID sign-in logs and Defender. Simplifies auditing. It's a pretty quick deployment. You deploy from the marketplace. I'll give you an example here on if, how it would work. For example, if you see suspicious sign-ins, let's say an Entra ID, you can quickly check whether there was a credential issuance and CMS maybe around the same time. So that's, I think, very powerful here with this integration. All right, so extending batch issuance for FIDO2 smart cards. We've had batch issuance in CMS specifically for PKI-based smart cards for a long time. The key update here is that we've extended that same batch issuance capability for FIDO2 smart cards. So now, if you have FIDO2 only smart cards, you can run a batch process. If you've integrated with a printer, a smart card printer, you could load the stack of cards with that printer, the FIDO2 cards, and issue them in bulk. And if you have, for example, it would naturally apply if you have a combined PKI FIDO2 ID cards the same way. So if you're issuing those, you would apply that in the same batch workflow process to issue those cards and enroll them to the large number of users. Because, of course, on the FIDO side, if we go back on the identity side, because we're issuing the FIDO part, obviously, and coding the FIDO part in a batch process, that obviously includes the provisioning the passkey into the target IDP or IDPs if you're using the multi-passkey. On the automation side piece here is what you'd really expect from CMS is the issuance is automated. So the policies are applied if you're issuing the PKI. Obviously, the certificates are applied, PIN policies. Handling stays same as a part of that control process. It is just now extended to the FIDO2 smart cards. All right, for those of you who want to use Ping IDP, you can now bring Ping passkeys through the same Versasec CMS workflow you already use. Same control, consistency, and governance. And you have the flexible enrollment methods. So depending on what fits the customer, you could do that batch and automation. So you do it in bulk. You could do it on behalf of the user, what is known as, I guess, the assisted enrollment here. Or provide it complete through self-service. And obviously, you're keeping it all under control and management in Versasec CMS. Okay, shifting to WebStart or WebStart API for lifecycle tasks. We've had this for a long while, but thought it's important to showcase it to you here as it's could be very useful. So you think of it as a clean browser-based front end into Versasec CMS actions. So let's say from the user point of view, it's a simple, they click a link, maybe from an HR portal, or even from an internal intranet web page. They land on the page, it's set up for them with the right lifecycle task, right? Any one of those tasks. They can issue, unblock, change PIN, reissue certificate, or update that credential. It's as simple as that. And you can make it feel like it belongs in that environment. Obviously, personalize it, company name, logo, think of your own localized language. It's their own, basically your own portal. Behind the scenes, the Versasec application still does the secure part with the card and token. So the experience stays secure, lightweight, but the action is still controlled and audited the same way. And one other thing to note here, I was mentioning the end user, but this can also be useful for the admins, especially help desk. You can imagine giving them a clean kind of way to perform PIN unblocks on behalf of the users. So whether it's a user flow, end user flow, or support flow, the idea is still the same. Okay, multi-pass key or manage multiple pass keys per device. So one user, one device, but more than one pass key. In real life, a lot of times, people may not always sit in that one clean box. So you may have different IDPs in the same company, or the same user needs a different setup depending on where that pass key is going to be used. So instead of forcing maybe extra devices or different workarounds, you can keep it all managed in one place. So again, multiple passkeys on the same device, each tied to the right IDP and the right configuration. FIDO2 applet reset. So it's about having a clean, controlled way. Controlled meaning the admin logs into the CMS, opens up the FIDO2 configuration here, and does a FIDO2 reset, or reset the applet without a kind of outside manual cleanup steps. Couple of key points. You can see what's on the device first. So in the CMS here, you can list the relaying parties and passkeys, so you understand what you're about to wipe. When you do a reset, it's fully traceable. Every reset is recorded in the transaction repository. So who did it, when, and what device. So supports real audit needs. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Safe device cleanup done via the admins within the application, and you have the visibility and audit, of course. This one is small, but I think important. How passkeys show up inside the IDP. Instead of sometimes getting a messy or inconsistent name, the CMS here lets you define the display name format. So it's clear, it's standardized, and it works the same across all IDPs. You can also build the name using a variable. So the variable in CMS would map to a directory attribute, username, UPN, email department, whatever you choose. And that'll say consistent automatically across all the cards, tokens that you issue here. And if it gets too long, we can truncate it to stay within the IDP limits. You can set those limits, max length limits there. Traditionally, let's shift here to PIV certificate support from all the FIDO stuff. So traditionally with PIV, a lot of times you think in terms of fixed small set of certificate slots, and sometimes in deployments, customers need additional containers beyond the standard ones. In, I think, 7.0 version here, we added support to manage more than 4 certificates or PIV certificates on the same card or token, as long as the device mini driver exposes those extra containers. So, and those extra containers can also include a lot of times what they refer to as key history or key recovery containers, all right, which matters for the key archive or recovery workflows, all right? So typically where on the recovery, CMS generates the key outside the card and injects it securely, and we have an archive copy for the recovery. So again, when the device supports it, the recovery related certificates can be handled within the same CMS lifecycle instead of, so you can handle those extra PIV slots directly from the CMS. Okay, transition of active YubiKeys. This is about bringing PIV reset into VSEC CMS issuance flow for YubiKeys, specifically YubiKey 5. So from version 7.2, you can enable an option to perform PIV applet reset automatically during registration. So you don't have to wipe the keys manually outside the CMS or one by one. I see 2 common scenarios here. So if you're doing a reissuance, a lot of times you need to reset the PIV applet before issuing again on the same key, right? That avoids it here. Transition, you already have, let's say, YubiKeys out there in your environment, and you want to bring them in controlled VSEC CMS managed lifecycle. So this helps you standardize that onboarding. And of course, it's configurable. You can turn it on when it fits your purpose. Okay, so this one is straightforward, but it's a great improvement. It was a great improvement on the user experience. When you're working with combined credentials that include FIDO2 and PKI applets on the same device, what we do now is, or what we've done since this was added, we only prompt for the pin that actually is relevant to what you're using. So if the user is only using FIDO2, they're only asked to provide the FIDO2 pin. Likewise, if they're only issuing PKI certificates and using only the PKI, but they're only asked for the PKI pin. So again, simple here, less confusion for users. You don't need any unnecessary prompts and leads to very smooth issuance flow. System health or webhook. So within CMS now, you can enable system health notifications within the application. And this one is about getting CMS health information that you enable there out of the UI into the tools your teams actually monitor. So again, VSEC CMS already detects system health events and the status messages. And what we added here is the ability to push those health events automatically to the webhook, so that third-party system can receive them. So instead of someone noticing an issue later, you can plug this into your monitoring workflow and then react faster. Good. Sorry. Staying on the system health for a moment, we also improved on how this is shown to you on your day-to-day. You would now see system health status right on the home screen. And you can also enable email notifications. So if something important happens, a service issue, configuration problem, anything that affects the system's ability here to operate, you don't have to go looking. It's visible right when you sign into the console, and it can also notify the right people by email. More on user experience improvements here, especially for the admins. This removes the friction for those admins operators who live in the console every day. First, we added the credential template description right where you're selecting the template, so the operator doesn't have to guess what template is for. And the context is right there, of course. It helps reduce mistakes, and so you keep that process consistent. Second, we made it so you can go from the different lifecycle states, issued, active, inactive, locked, directly to unregistered. So you don't have to go to retired first. Okay. Configuration changes, so more about audit and control, especially in those environments where more than one person administers the Versasec CMS. We now log configuration changes in a way that answers those three questions that we care about. What changed, who changed it, and when. And importantly, it's written in the system log, so it becomes part of the normal audit trail. So when something behaves differently after a change, you can check, or you need to prove what was done during an audit. You have a clear record to go back to. All right, starting in 7.0, also the installer no longer offers the admin component by default. The standard path is now get the server plus the on the client side, the agent. That's what most environments should be using. If someone still needs to use the admin app, you can install it, but it's done explicitly with a switch. So yeah, so you would still have that there. And the reason we really want to promote the usage of the agent over the admin app as the primary approach. However, if you do have already the admin app in your environment, when upgrading, it will still upgrade the admin app as well. So it'll upgrade both the agent and the admin app if you have that on that client machine. All right, some end of life announcements, previous and 2026. I'm not going to read through the list live here, but the takeaway is we publish these end of life items in the release notes for each release, each major release. So if you're planning upgrades, new deployments and such, that's the best place to check on what's going to be phased out and the effective dates. All right, with that, I think we move on to Q&A. Let's see, do we have any questions? All right, first question, how do you handle PIN delivery for Yubico as a service as it's configurable? Right, so on the CMS side, right, it is configurable. It can be done over email, SMS, or shared with the manager, written to a DB, to another system, or using APIs. Okay. WebStart is mainly for end users, or can admins use it too? Yes, absolutely. So you can, I think I mentioned previously, you can use the WebStart for admins as well, and have them, do let's say, help desk type tasks on behalf of the users. So issuances, pin on block, certificate renewal, and such. Okay, smart card printing on Fighter 2 cards. Does this also include generating passkeys? Yes. So in terms of smart card printing, when you're integrated with a printer, part of the process or part of the steps of that would include potentially printing, obviously, and encoding, in this case, the passkeys to the IDPs that are connected. As these printers contain encoders, um, that can perform those functions. Yes. All right. EOL items, where should we look to confirm dates and how early should we plan transitions? The sooner the better on planning, of course, and you should look at the major releases. That's not in the service pack. So if you go into the your support portal where you access and download CMS software, you can see the major releases there, release notes, and that's where we publish those end of life items. Okay, I believe those are all the questions. So that brings us to the end of the highlights we wanted to walk you through today. So if there's one key takeaway, it's across these 7.0, 7.2 have been focused heavily on making credentials and passkey rollouts more manageable, more scalable, easier to operate. Thanks again for spending the time with us. If you have follow-up questions after this session, whether it's about specific feature here or something else, just reach out to us at the contact details or through your partner. And with that, thank you and have a great day.